All right, we are live. It's probably going to take a minute for it to start, but how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to, well, it's not Britain's Hangout Hour, but this is a sort of discussion post thing that I'm doing today. I'm here with EpicTalez. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. So first of all, like apparently this is his first like a collaborative live stream. So I'm honored to be, on this channel, debuting this series. Or I don't know, like he hasn't even come up with a name for it yet. So yeah, happy to be here. I'm very eager to have this discussion about Grimdark, which is what I'm most passionate about. And yeah, just another opportunity to hang out with my boy. So
Um,
let's
how,
do this.
how are you? Glad that you're here. Um, yeah, but we're talking about Grimdark today, and well, who better to talk about Grimdark than with our friend EpicTalez here? Well, who's not slowly read, but um, definitely Pem here because he has some opinions. And I was actually inspired to have this conversation because I saw your video about like 5 Grimdark books. Like, oh god, that was like in December, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like Grimdark is I've done a lot of reading, fantasy, sci-fi, romance. I've read literally all kinds of books, and I have a slight preference towards Grimdark. I like books
Hmm.
that have a darker tone to them. I don't often have to articulate my reasons why I like it, but maybe I should do a video about it. But in general,
That's
those
why we're
guys,
here today.
yeah, that's why we're here today. So for me, this I don't have like a script or anything. I'm just going to be freestyling, and I'm very excited to do it because yeah, like, and through the questions that you're gonna ask me, I'm excited to, you know, um, you know, explore this emotionally and rationally as well.
Yeah, you also said some things. Um, so I thought we would go into more exploration on that because I know that you are a very curious person about the world and stuff like that. I know you talk about philosophy from time to time on your channel, or like storycraft. I think something like that. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Also, Uzman is here. Hello, Uzman. How are you doing? Glad you're here.
Yeah, like Usman is another fan of Grimdark. Like we have very similar taste. So when Usman watch any of Usman's videos and he says he likes a book, like I'm most likely going to like it. So if you're a fan of Grimdark and anything dark and dastardly, check out Bardem Books. But yeah, I think in the video you're referring to, I was saying that the reason we like Grimdark is like meaning how each individual reader of Grimdark can create meaning out of the meaning that is basically how consciousness contends, and yeah, like that is in a nutshell why I love Grimdark. It creates a world, an absurd world where there is no idea that cannot be explored, whether it's forbidden, whether it's it's difficult for you to address in real life. I'm telling. So I had like, for instance, I experienced. I know someone I know died, and I was going
Oh,
through a very hard time dealing with it. And in reading like books about like grimdark books, I was able to like resolve, like able to assimilates my emotions better while I was reading the grimdark book, because I was it was in tune with how I was feeling about myself, and I was watching people that were dealing with the same kind of things, and the quality of the writing, of course, was on that level. So it just helped me out, and it's a very personal preference that I have.
well, for one, I'm sorry for your loss. That's I understand that all too well.
Yeah, yeah, but it's kind of like a change from it's kind of change from the typical like hero's journey where the focus is the hero. The world
Mm-hmm.
is basically like black and white, good and evil, and the path to saving the world is straight. Maybe there's just one guy that has to go, and very simple plot. With Grimdark, it's more complicated. The world is usually too messed up to be saved, and these characters are trying to do their best, which for me, like personally, mirrors reality more, kind of. So it's a very interesting aspect of.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I like darker stuff. I mean, we both have read Blood Meridians, so that kind of kind of that kind of gives you an idea that I like grim material for
Yeah.
whatever reason. I don't know why. I had a good childhood.
I had a great
uh,
childhood as well. But
um,
then I've always have had an attraction to it. Like I was reading Berserk when I was like 8, 9, 10, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, like I enjoyed it. Like I couldn't. I was not. I was also reading other stuff, but what I was drawn to and what I was reading and hiding away from my parents because my parents were convinced I was demon possessed. But like what I was, doing like in my spare time and enjoying and daydreaming about and pondering about, like it's always been a very dark stuff.
well, I had some questions I had written here today, so we could kind of keep in track or something like that. I'm sure we'll go on tangents because that's what I do. But first two I have here is well, for one, kind of the obvious question: what is grimdark, and like, what do you think makes a book grimdark as opposed to just dark fantasy?
So I feel like for everyone, because I feel like it's not a genre that has very hard boundaries or very hard a very hard classification where it's like that is what it is. For
Huh.
everyone, everybody has a little bit of a nuance what grimdark means to them, but
Mm-hmm.
in general, it's goes beyond the convention of a moralistic worldview, and you know treats morality more as from a relative perspective, like what is this person's perspective and what they care about. Usually it's not usually plot based, like it can have a plot, but usually when people know that is going to end unpleasantly, they are not they, it might discourage them from reading it. So it's not necessarily about the plot, it's more about your understanding of the characters and the decisions they have to make in a world that is so chaotic and messed up. So you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself like exploring the topics. Like in Game of Thrones, I've not seen a story like address the like incest. Like if you read like old mythologies and you read
Mm-hmm.
old stuff like about the gods and the Norse gods and like even like the Greek gods, there's a lot of incest there, everything. But like in a modern story like Game of Thrones, like a Song of Ice and Fire, the way it's addressed there, it's like you read it, like you read about it and you keep on reading because there's much worse stuff happening around. And like a topic
Mm-hmm.
like that can be explored because of the kind of world that it is. So it's not about morals, like it is beyond that. And that allows you to explore the more like uh darker parts of your psyche, which is I find
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, it's kind of weird because like I agree with you. I think that grimdark isn't really like a defined thing. It's just kind of like a nickname people gave to the certain genre. Um, but like I've heard some people say, "Oh, it feels more gritty and realistic," but I'm like, well, I mean, if you want like gritty, I mean, there's like sword and sorcery. but there's also like
So
dark fantasy as well. It's real. It's weird. It's
so
weird.
so the thing about sort of sorcery, particularly, is that before people started defining books as grim dark, like it was sword and sorcery that felt that filled that hole, like,
Mm,
so grimdark is kind of an offset of sword and sorcery, all
hmm
the way back from like Elric of Melniboné, which was like a direct
hmm
response of the writer to Tolkien's work.
And
And it
Conan
was just,
as well.
yeah, like he read that and he was like, no, there's something about your story that doesn't sit right with me, with how,
Hmm
with the axioms of thoughts that I have built around what the world really works like. And then as a response to that, he created Elric of Melniboné. And it's funny how fantasy has gone, fantasy specifically, but I wouldn't even just say fantasy, but writing has, kind of detoured in two directions like that, of that kind of representation of what the world is in storytelling.
Yeah, I think that's interesting you bring that up because I've talked about this before on my channel, but I kind of view literature, and it doesn't really matter what genre it is. I feel like literature really at its core is a conversation between not just the audience and the author, but also from one author to the other. And you see this
Hmm.
in, you'll see this in literary fiction, you'll see this in science fiction, you'll see it in fantasy. I mean, like you just said, Moorcock was a bit of a response to Tolkien and Robert E. Howard to another extent. Oh, there's the thumbs up right there. But and you kind of see this, Martin is a kind of response to Tolkien because he's very much taking that um I don't want to ignore you, Uzman. I'll put your comment here. It lies mainly in the characters for me, other elements too, but the choices characters make, which may be questionable. That's understandable. I mean, when I think of something like the First Law, which is kind of my favorite one to pick on, even though I know Joe doesn't really like being called Grimdark, even though he's called Lord Grimdark on Twitter. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent here. But I think it's interesting how that conversation has gone through the centuries as it's gone on. I'm actually going to make a video soon about if fantasy's in a sort of identity crisis because it seems we haven't, at least not yet. We're starting to grow. We're starting to move away, but I feel like there's the sense that we haven't quite moved away from the Tolkien and Howard model just yet. But I don't mean to derail it too much here. I mean, what do you think about
Um,
that? I just
so
spat a few words at you.
for me, like specifically about like where about like fantasy being an offset of like Tolkien, I feel it's a
Hmm
testament. Tolkien didn't write the Lord of the Rings. Silmarillion is not the first fantasy book. Was it the Hobbit? Did the Hobbit come first? It's not the first fantasy book. It's just
Well,
like
no, of course not.
it's just like what he wrote, right? Was spoke to people, spoke to a lot of people in that generation and
Hmm
continues to speak to us. So it's more about, and it's like Lord of the Rings was great, and there are many great books that have come from it. I'm currently reading um Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah. You
definitely,
mentioned that
like,
before we
yeah,
were talking
yeah.
about this.
I'm reading like Elric of Melniboné, Malazan,
Hmm
all these books like that we are reading, even Game of, all of that is they are different from Lord of the Rings, but is inspired by. So I don't think it's I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but until
Well,
someone,
no.
yeah, but until someone can, come up with something else, it's like if it works, don't change it, right?
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. I'm not again. I mean, I like stuff that is, I mean, I like the First Law. I like Game of Thrones, and you can definitely see those roots back in Tolkien and Howard and little bit of Fritz Lieber, except or Leiber. I don't know. It's a weird name. But Uzman here again says Great Grimdark has very intricate characters, almost like a study. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. I mean, First Law, even Beyond Redemption. I think what was interesting about that book was even though these you think Joe's characters are bad, these people make them look like stable,
Saints, yes.
saints. Yes, thank
So look at the world of like Beyond Redemption. So messed up, so messed
it's
up.
a big
But
suck.
then you have, and Beyond Redemption is the
But you
reason why a lot of
understand these
people,
people
yes, you
while not
understand them.
condoning what they do.
You don't condone what they do, but in that meaningless nihilistic world, you see how each and every one, each and every character comes up with their own meaning of existence, of worth. Like all of them assign, like kind of like almost in an existential way, assign value
Yeah.
to what they believe is important for them. So it's like the world allows the characters, the messed up world allows the characters to be so colorful because all of them are trying to contend with it in a way that works in their own selfish best interest. Now, like in psychotherapy, there's this idea that whether you're conscious of it or not, even when you are self-sabotaging yourself, is because of a subconscious idea that you are doing what is in your best interest. So
Mhm.
it's like it's and then this, like, it talks about levels of survival as an individual, and then as a group, and then as a community, and then as a country, and then and so on and so forth. It goes into like as a universal, like but generally it's like that idea that everybody subconsciously or unconsciously is doing what they feel is in their best interest is very much highlighted in Grimdark, because Grimdark forces these characters to be in survival mode kind of all the time. And because of that, and the decisions they make, may contradict some of the things they've said before, and some of the things that they are saying, but through the decisions you make, it really the characters just feel a lot more defined, and in each of their own existence, represent a philosophy, because it's grounded in something so chaotic and and just like dark.
I
But
guess
yeah.
this is kind of a mini question, but do you think that Grimdark is supposed to be grittier than something like what dark fantasy, or do you not really think in those lines? Because I've kind of noticed like there's some grimdark books I've read, like Game of Thrones, or even the first lot other, for other, which are kind of the favorite examples, but they definitely feel well, kind of like the old sword and sorcery stories, very the magic is toned back a little bit. Um um and there's more, how do I say this? It feels more grounded in real life, I
So
guess is a good way
so
to say it.
this comes to because when you're talking about Grimdark, you have to be very careful, because like I mentioned before, it's a little bit subjective. Like you see, this is the thing when you're giving
A little
recommendations.
shocked.
I don't want to traumatize you, because first law for me is kind of like entry to Grimdark kind of thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Um, I would say you should try the Lies of Lamora. That one is also very is and it focuses on the relationship between. Don't give you don't just give off don't just recommend Beyond Redemption to people.
Yeah.
You have to give a warning
I
that,
don't know. Okay.
from the first law to the Lies of Loch Lamora, then we throw
That
in
is a great
something
book.
there, maybe, yeah, before you get to Beyond Redemption. But yeah. And yeah, what was I even saying before that? um yeah, so to what we were saying before about how Grimdark is very subjective, and you were saying like how it's more grounded and clear. So it comes down to what people describe Grimdark as, what people like interpret Grimdark as. So if we are going to, some people define Grimdark as more gritty, and I tend to do that as well. Like, for instance, if you're reading Beyond Redemption, you can see the vomit, you can see you can almost like taste like the the air, like how the toxicity in the air, and it's you can almost feel it. Michael Fletcher can just be writing, and then just float. You can just talk about like a rat floating on some still water that like it's very intentional and intricate in its like design. So it's and for me, like, I tend to identify that as grimdark, but I've seen stuff I'd categorize as dark fantasy being called grimdark as well. So I feel like that specific aspect or categorization of grimdark is a subjective thing.
Well, yeah, no, I hear you, because it's kind of, because what I've noticed, and you've kind of spoken to this, that the language kind of changes a little bit, because you're just kind of like, like, well, is it supposed to be grittier? But oh wait, there's Elric, and Elric's just out there, you know, which
No, but
funnily
like
enough,
but like Eric is not dark. I don't think Eric is grimdark. I think Eric is dark fantasy.
yeah. I would agree with that, because like I've heard
Yeah,
people say Elric is grimdark, and I'm like, there's more of a fantastical element there. Like don't get me wrong, it's not a cheerful story by any means, but again,
yeah,
it's been a while since I've read Elric, and it's gone in some bizarre directions from what I remember. Also, hello,
yeah.
Amanda.
Yeah, Amanda is one of my besties on YouTube, so nice to have you here.
Oh yes, I'm sure I'm curious what she will think about this grimdark thing, because
Yeah,
it's but yeah, no, it's weird, because I think because like, again, you kind of go back, and though, like, with Robert E. Howard, it's weird, because like Conan's dark, but there's a fun to it as well. Again, it's really weird.
yeah. So I recently read this book, Spare Cuts Through Water. So how it's one of the most genre bending. It's fantasy, but like it's has so many elements of so many different types of fantasy, and it had like just like a specific moment that felt so grimdark, but before then sometimes it feels like high fantasy. And I don't and reading that book really put me in a use me as an excuse to why people aren't buying it. She always has something to say about self-pub authors.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just like it's just like a very interesting like categorization.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, because I mean, I would describe. I mean, yeah, First Law is a good example, but I would also call it kind of a throwback to like Sword and Sorcery. Well, at least in some
Yeah,
parts.
yeah, yeah,
Well, hopefully, Amanda and others who are watching, we can illuminate you for Cryptar. Oh my god. Um. Well, I guess that leads nicely to the next question here. What books would you say are good examples of the um subgenre of grimdark? I mean, I'm sure you have some opinions on that. So,
oh my god, like um the second apocalypse, R. Scott Baker.
Berserk.
No, the second apocalypse, R. Scott Baker.
Oh,
Beyond
okay.
Redemption is I want shock factor or depressive. That's what we're talking about. Okay, try the Beyond Redemption. Try Beyond Redemption. If you can handle Beyond Redemption, then you're definitely one of us. Like, you're definitely one of us. It's messed up, and it doesn't. The thing with I have to like actually tell you, it doesn't hold back at all. In fact, it leans into, like and it so I've heard people like this say that it describes too much, but personally I love it because it made me very, very uncomfortable.
Oh dear. D says
But
challenge accepted.
yeah,
um, Actually, my friend Jason actually read what's dang it, what's that first book from R. Scott Baker?
The second apocalypse,
And then,
the darkness that comes before.
oh yeah, that one. Yeah, he read
Yeah,
that one. He actually liked it, much to my surprise.
yeah. It's a book like if you love so how do I explain this? So if the Prince of Nothing, the Princess of Nothing, of course,
The Princess
but
of
like
Nothing.
if you're the Prince of Nothing is a book that very well like is the best depiction. It's the archetypical representation of what I would describe Grimdark as, and it is so messed up. It is so messed up, but it's unlike Beyond Redemption. That it feels like it feels very real, very very gritty, very um you know very visceral, and the characters,
It's kind of a genre
the as
bender.
sorry, the Prince of Nothing.
Yeah, I've heard it's kind of a genre bender from what I've heard. Anyway,
Is it a genre bender? Yes, it has aspects to it like that, but the overwhelming theme of it is definitely grimdark. I do not think R. Scott Baker was thinking, how do I write a grimdark book? But for everything before I read the book, every definition of grimdark that I had, articulated and non-articulated, is like it's the quintessential representation of it. The Prince of Nothing.
yeah, no, it's yeah. I mean, I haven't read those yet, but it is a trilogy, so I'm definitely wanting to check it out at some point. I just
No, it's a book I will highly recommend, but it gets you depressed in a way where you see yourself like in some of the characters that are written. The protagonist is despicable in the worst way possible, like it, and but then you cannot. His POV is one of the most interesting POVs that I've read, like in storytelling. Period. And he's very very peculiar, and it's something you'd have to read to experience, because I don't want to say anything that will ruin like stuff. But the Prince of Nothing is what I would define as grimdark if I had to point out one book.
apparently, hello Mac, good seeing you. He is currently reading Red Brother by Adrian Selby, which I've never heard of. Heartbreaking Grimdark, and also this man, hello, Soshi Azza. I could be. I
So
apologize
she
if I butchered that. Probably did.
Yeah, like he recently joined my Discord. Like he's a new booktuber. I love his stuff. I love how he's approaching like reading and the fantasy genre, generally with such honesty. And yeah, like he's here to learn and become a part of the community. And yeah, like I love having him around. I love watching his stuff as well. So check him out. Sochi
Well,
Aza.
nice to have you here, man. Glad to meet you. And I'm sorry if I messed up your name. um, oh man. I mean, Game of Thrones, maybe. But I think Game of Thrones gets misunderstood a lot because I do believe at its core it is a moral story.
Moral story? What do you mean?
Um, I've thought about making a video about this, but like there's a causality in it that's very that because a lot of people remember Ned getting offed. Spoilers, by the way. If you haven't read Game of Thrones by now, I don't know what to tell you. But but how do I put it? Um, so
So
I
the
it's a
reason I would
story about why it's important to stay good in an amoral world. I think is what it's about.
but it's like I would the reason I would say it's a story about morality, because morality is not rewarded. Like the people who are
No,
moral in the
not
story,
always.
like often Mostly never. Like the people who do good, like most of the time they end up paying for it. It's
Yeah,
I feel like it presents like it presents the moral characters as very admirable, and you feel really good when someone is trying to make something good happen. But um in general it's not rewarded, so it's like something you would encourage, but like it's not rewarded, so it brings a very
sure.
grounded reality aspect to, like, it's more like if you're being moral, it should, if there was a lesson, it's like even if you're being moral, like you're not going to get, it doesn't mean like heaven is going to reward you for being moral. Like if you was trying to send a message, then be good for goodness sake, not because you're going to get things are going to work out all right because you're a good person or anything, which I really like, because like from my experience with the world, that's what the case is. So that is something I can identify as truth, in his writing about, like in his themes and his writing.
Yeah, I would agree with you that goodness is not rewarded, and then you go to like someone like Joe Abercrombie, which kind of just takes that to the nth degree.
Yeah, that's my girlfriend, by the way.
Whoa! Put featuring his girlfriend. um, yeah. I mean, I think like, I mean, when you read Joe Abercrombie or like a Michael Fletcher, and then you read like a George R. R. Martin, I think there is a difference
Of course,
of
of
just
course,
worldviews.
of course. Like Joe, Michael Fletcher has an emphasis, a very strong emphasis on magic. Like his world doesn't work without the magic. Like his world is integrated. The magic wouldn't work without the characters. The characters won't work without the themes. Like everything is integrated like that. Game of Thrones like has fantasy as almost something happening in the background of
Hmm.
like a grounded reality,
Hmm.
and then the first law doesn't really, it's not, it has like fantastical elements, like there's like the shankers, and like there's the like the but more like the entities that live in the world, and then there's buyers with the magic factor, but it's not always like in your face, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's how they handle the fantasy, how the fantasy is handled in each of the books are different, so it's very interesting, very very interesting like that. um i
Um,
def- I define Grimdark as the closest reality of human behavior, dynamic, or performance of human values, which all have some dark. Yes, yes.
I would agree with
I
that.
agree
Sure.
with that. I agree with that very clearly. Yes, because it's there's this idea, and this is like from Union psychology and philosophy, that everyone has like a shadow self, and the shadow self is basically like the parts of yourself that you do not like. And when you talk about Grimdark really explores those dark recesses of your mind, and the funny thing about it is that when you identify with these characters making poor decisions, making bad decisions, making evil decisions, you can see their logic. You can see their logic. You can almost even empathize with them, even if you don't agree with them. Like in
Hmm.
the frame of the world and the setting, the decisions they make sense. And you can ask yourself the question, if I was in his shoes, what would I have done? That is like, that doesn't make you a bad person, but that lets you know that there's something going on up there that, you know what I mean? Which I find very interesting.
Yeah. I guess I'll bring up a book, and like it's kind of weird because I mean, it's a I mean, I've gotten after I bet Pem will laugh because I've gotten after him to read this because I think he'll be very fascinated by it. But I think Black Leopard Red Wolf is a good. I don't know if it's
You've
grim dark per se, but it's not a and to be honest, I've been actually thinking about this book recently for whatever reasons. So, great book if anyone ever wants to read it. It's not for the faint of heart, but it definitely has elements of grimdark in it, though. Like it's really it does not hold back.
You have been recommending this book to me for such a long time. I will read
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Hopefully
I
this
have.
year. Yeah. And is this the one that is fantasy set in Africa? Like African
Mhm.
type. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I really would love to hear your thoughts, and I mean, not just because you're an African male, though that is a part of
Nin-
it.
Nigerian. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I read Rage of Dragons. It's not dark as well, but like it's just been on my agenda to read for such a long time, and I love the book so much. Like the description of the battle, like the way he set up like the world systems, everything. I absolutely adored the book.
I have not read Malazan yet. Still, I know I need to get to it at some point.
Yeah. So this is very interesting, and I would agree with her as well because see Malazan as dark fantasy, not grimdark. But a lot of people categorize Malazan as grimdark feeling. The world, yes, it has a grimdark idea to it, but yeah, just the
Yeah, it
characters are not
definitely.
necessarily, they don't give me the grimdark feeling.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a again, I haven't read it, but from what I've heard people say, it definitely sounds like a very, I don't want to say high fantasy because a lot of people have like Lord of the Rings, people think like Lord of the Rings or something like that. But yeah, no, I've heard it's yeah, no, it's interesting. Again, the
Yeah,
labels we do. I guess I'm fascinated by
yeah,
labels, which is why we're
yeah,
having this conversation today.
yeah. Wait, does she have a page? Does she have like
Who?
a YouTube
Oh yeah,
channel?
yeah, yeah, yeah. She does.
I'm gonna check it out. Like I'm agreeing with everything she says. I'm gonna check
Yeah,
it
I
out.
mean,
I was gonna.
um, oh yeah, I knew this man. I like this man. He's really I like this guy.
I
Yeah,
was gonna
no.
reference the Dark Star trilogy. I haven't read that.
Oh no, that's the series that this book comes from.
Oh, okay, 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 okay,
Yeah,
okay.
no, it's again, that's the weird thing. I don't know if it's grimdark, but I know it's weird because like it's definitely a fantasy story. But anyway, Uzman says, I will say I'm stoked for Gunmetal Gods, book I need to read, Sons of Darkness, a
So,
book I also hope to read, and all the other
so
Middle Eastern and Indian grimdark that's coming
you
out.
you 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 know what I love about this? Like this is so like a lot of people might disagree with me, and I don't know if this is even controversial at this point, but there's a lot of like storytelling now. Books that I like. When I see it, I cringe a little bit, where they try to force like inclusion and representation and all that stuff. The reason I really fuck with like gunmetal gods, I haven't read it yet, but like just from what I've heard, it's and it's a Middle Eastern interpretation of Grimdark. So it is authentic in itself, and that by itself is something that I would love to experience and read because it comes from a pure source of creativity. There's no agenda, there's no like trying to add ideas, there's no like forcing inclusion, there's no like it's organic. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's one of the reasons why it's been so successful. I don't know if you guys know Steve talks about books like when he used to like release videos. When he read this book Gunmetal Gods, it came out and he told me I was going to absolutely love it, and I'm so excited about it. So Usman, when you're reading it, let me know. Maybe we can read it together. Like I'm all about building that community and doing this books together, reading all these books together.
Yeah, I've been interested in I've been interested in reading something like Gunmetal Gods or Sons of Darkness because I mean, as much as I enjoy me a good enjoy me a good pseudo medieval setting, I like to see things that are different. So I'm curious to see how those books
Yeah.
would be
Anytime I can
feel.
see something different, anytime I can see something different, like doesn't even have to be entirely different. It's just like some sort of unique perspective, you know.
I know what you mean, D. I know what you mean. Oh my gosh, I
I know
that's
what you
why I was
mean.
reluctant. Oh,
Yeah, I
sorry,
know
go ahead.
what you mean as well. Like we're all figuring this stuff out.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because again, again, I guess I'm really fascinated by the labels that we give things and why we do that, if that makes any sense. So like,
Um,
why is this grim dark and why is this dark fantasy and why is this epic fantasy? Because I mean, it's fantasy as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
so
I'm pretty loose with them.
so okay, so there's an understanding. For instance, let's talk about Malazan. Why I feel like Malazan is not is dark fantasy, and why
Okay.
the Prince of Nothing is grimdark.
Okay.
So
Let me hear your thoughts.
Both Malazan and the Prince of Nothing have very strong plots.
Hmm.
Um, both Malazan and the Prince of Nothing have very good characters, very good characterization.
Hmm.
But when I read Malazan, the plot and the characterization feels like two different elements
Hmm.
of a story. When I read the Prince of Nothing, I feel the characters are carrying the plot.
Mm.
I don't know
Okay.
how to, like, the characters are like so integrated into the story and the plot that is almost inseparable. So it's the plot is in Malazan, the plot feels like it's set up with or without, the characters are working with the plot, and like Eric does it in such a brilliant way. But
Hmm.
What R. Scott Baker does in, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying what R. Scott Baker does in
You're just
The
describing
Prince
the
of
difference.
Nothing.
I hear you.
Yeah, what R. Scott Baker does, and it's but it's kind of like obvious if you read it. So it's I'm trying to pick my words very carefully. But what R. Scott Baker does in Prince of Nothing is that it feels integrated, and it's so much more about the characters and how they are surviving in that world. So the characters are carrying the plot in our score in the Prince of Nothing. But yeah,
Oh, I always get those mixed up. Prince of Thorns and Prince of Nothing. I always get those mixed up.
two very different books. Two very different
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
I would say Prince of
Uh,
Thorns is also entry to the Grimdark, but it's not. Yeah,
I backed the Ultimate Edition, or he was talking about Gunmetal Gods, I think. Well, hopefully that gets to you okay, Usman. Yeah. I mean, would you consider The Witcher grimdark, or would
no,
you call that dark fantasy?
no. I'll call that dark fantasy.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'll call that.
Um, well, D thought you explained it very well.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that leads to I guess this leads to our next question, which we've already kind of discussed a little bit. What do you think appeals people to Grimdark, or what do you think appeals? What do you think the appeal of Grimdark is to people? I
I
guess a
think
better
it's
way.
just the pure. I think it's how raw it is. I feel it's just how raw it is, and you get to be somebody. You get to be like through your experience with the character. You get to be someone that doesn't. You are literally somebody completely different when you're in the minds of these characters, because you are not justifying, but you are rationalizing, empathizing, and projecting the decisions they make, even if they are despicable. So it's an
Hmm.
experience where you get to explore, you get to see the philosophies of different characters clash. Like think about like Beyond Redemption now, like Vishtik's philosophy versus Stalen's philosophy, and how that is constantly clashing throughout the book to just create beautiful resonance. Like it's it's unique in that way. Like if you can get past the absurdism and everything disgusting about Michael Fletcher's writing, then you're left with very colorful characters that you don't quite understand why you are in love with them. That is why I love Grimdark.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, that's interesting you mentioned that. I've I've thought about this over the years because I also like darker things, like I guess how much you consider something like Breaking Bad or The Sopranos dark. If I don't know if you've watched those, but
Definitely dark. Definitely dark.
um, I've kind of realized I think people on some level like danger.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah, I would
think that's
agree with
also the
that.
appeal. I think that's the appeal of Grimdark. I think that's what the appeal of something like a gangster film is, because you can like just kind of go around and kind of well, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm being like Hobbes and saying that people are animals and we need to keep them down with laws and whatnot to keep them from just killing each other. But I think on some level people are attracted to danger for some reason. I don't know why. Or
Yeah,
excitement. I think it's exciting.
the appeal
Kinda
for like gangster stuff, I would say that is from like it's like, especially now that like people are don't trust the government anymore. That idea of like what exists outside and people like that in itself is appealing to experience through like what's it, Scarface and Snowfall. I don't know if you've watched like Snowfall, like
I don't
so
think I've
so
watched
gangster.
Snowfall.
It's a TV show. It's such so gangster, like and
I've heard of this.
you
I haven't
know
watched it though.
what's it's The Sopranos and stuff like that. You get to see how like and a lot of it is based off like real stuff that happened before, so it's based on truth. So yeah, like it's very interesting to see what's on the other side. And Grimdark in general is just like a complete mind like bending experience if when done well. So that appeal is very interesting. I There's something when people categorize Grimdark, there's something I don't like it when they boil it down. Okay, so Grimdark in comparison to Tolkien, for instance, and
Hmm.
they boil it down to you know an optimistic worldview. So if you're an optimist, then you would like Tolkien, and if you're a pessimist, you would like what's his face? You'd like George R. R. Martin, for instance. But people forget that yes, Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, but
There's some grim
he
stuff in there
wrote
too. A lot of
what there's some really grim stuff there, like Frodo's and Sam's journey, and their experience of forgetting what food tastes like, and like like their journey to Mordor, and like
also Frodo's
the whole
traumatized by the end. He
yeah,
pretty much has PTSD.
that is straight. And Tolkien was a world war was a veteran as well, like he was a soldier
Hmm.
that had experienced war. So it wasn't entirely, it did end happily after, but not without some scars, not without
Yeah, I would agree with
delving
that.
into there was like some real pessimism there. Like Lord of the Rings is more wholesome in every way than some people give it credit for. So it's like it's not merely that, it's a lot deeper than that, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the nuances of certain things, if because I've noticed this pattern with storytelling. Like we'll get something that like changes the world in terms of like rather it be comic, book, genre, whatever you want it to be, like and then people copy it, and there's some of the people who are inspired by it who do a pretty good job with it. And then there's people who literally just rewrite it without really understanding what the people who are writing it are actually saying. And I think that's a problem. It's a problem I've seen in comics. It's a problem I've seen in fantasy. I mean, my God, you can't imagine how many times I've seen Watchmen ripoffs that just completely miss what that story was about.
Mm,
But I think you're right that the nuances of certain works have been lost over time because we have
yeah,
this conception of it. Don't get
yeah,
me wrong. I'd love
and
to live in the
and
Shire and hang out.
yeah, you see, and that's the problem with, and even like since this conversation started, I've been careful to explain, okay, this is my subjective thing, and it's like an evolving understanding of, but that's the problem with like putting it in a box, because when you put it in a box,
Mhm.
you're isolating every other thing that it is, every other thing that it is, and like in terms of how it is meaningful to people, you know.
Are you talking about Lord of the Rings? Because I need to reread Lord of the Rings again. It's been a long time since I read it last. But yeah, I mean, like, there's even like the Scouring of the Shire, where like Saruman basically tries to commit genocide against the hobbits. Like there's some grim stuff in there.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that's
really
not
grim
funny,
stuff.
but
Yeah, yeah, and like, Game of Thrones, if you've watched up to season 8, you know that, it ended up being, it's a tragic, but then it ended up being a very like a deep love story, which is what, like, if you're going to like you're going to, minimize what Grimdark is, it's not Grimdark, but it's like a Grimdark that is able to assimilate all these different elements is what it makes for good writing, so, if you're able to experience a Grimdark world that has romance and has some comedy in it, and has, it's not just all pessimism, but pessimism is the general realistic
hmm
ideas and everything, but it's wholesome as well. It can have moments that, like are positive, not positive, but are leaning towards, you know positivity and stuff like that.
yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. It's definitely a it's kind of what I was saying earlier a little bit about I think that people label things too quickly, which I guess we could get into another discussion about like the lack of nuance in a lot of criticism nowadays. But I don't know if I really want to go there.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of the thing that discourages me from doing book reviews. It's like characters good or characters bad, plot good or plot bad. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, if I cannot talk about a book, like, explain it in a way where I can vaguely talk about it without like rigid, because it's like when I'm reading my book review, like, okay, I said the characters are good. Yeah, okay. Do I explain why the character is good? And sometimes I watch some review channels where it's just like, I just need to know if they like the book or not. Like, their reviews are basically, very flat. But yeah, I'm not trying to throw criticism to anyone. I'm not mentioning names, but like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
Like I just go with I know I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It's
no, I'm not trying to cause
that's a
like
good
beef
vote
or
of
anything.
confidence
Like,
there.
yeah, yeah, no, like, obviously none of my friends. But yeah,
No, no, I guess it's interesting to me because it's just kind of like, well, okay, like, yeah, I sort of, like, what is it? Like, there's even some people I would mention that we were having this chat today, And my friend Raph from Raph Blue Text was all like, "Well, it doesn't exist," and I'm like, "Okay." And he's made a couple of videos on the subject, so I mean, if you want to go watch those. But again, it's like, well, what is it? Is it just a subgenre? Is it a style? Is it an actual genre? I mean, because it doesn't have to be just fantasy. Like there's some dark other genres too.
Yeah, I've heard some sci-fi books described as grimdark as well. Like what's the name? Some sci-fi stories. What's the name of this popular one? Uh, when I remember, I'll say it. But like, yeah, I've seen like other stuff being described as grimdark before that. It's not necessarily fantasy, so I feel like it's an offset. Let's just say an offset of fantasy sci-fi that touches on philosophical themes and relative morality in a nihilistic, meaningless world that is often characterized by chaos and pain and tragedy and yeah.
I guess I mean that's a good way to put it, but isn't that what good fiction should do in general? I mean, I don't know about the dark part, but shouldn't fiction in general, kind of get us to more connect and understand the world around us?
Yes, but not necessarily.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, but not
yeah.
necessarily. Like it's that could be a preference. That could be a preference. I like books. Like someone saying, I like books that help me understand my environment more. But some people read fiction for pure entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people read fiction to escape. You can read you can read a book that for you is just like so deep, and someone read it as just pure entertainment and took no, like, at least consciously, any value from reading the book, or that enhance their understanding of reality itself. So yeah, but the thing about grimdark, I feel like, is maybe not the world or reality, but it helps you understand yourself. Like you because these characters are basically holding up a mirror to you.
I guess here's a good kind of side question, which I guess we'll get in the more kind of philosophical territory. But do you think there are more of a also personal preference thing too? But one, do you think that Grimdark? Do you think that there's a is there anything that's too far in Grimdark that you've encountered? And the second one would be, do you think that Grimdark sort of gives a I don't want to say how do I put this? Um do you think it gives not a distorted but a oh, um, do you have a word for it? Like, do you think it gives a certain view of the world that might not necessarily be correct? I'll put it that way.
So I do not.
Which I know you've complained about.
I'll speak from my experience.
Now I
From
should
my
note.
experience,
I know you've
I feel like,
complained. Sorry.
so for the first question, is there anything grim that is too much? I've read a lot of messed up stuff. I didn't think Blood Meridian is too much. If I didn't think Blood Meridian was too much, I don't know. Like, it's writing, it's words on paper. Like, if it's not your thing, don't read it. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
I would not categorize anything like that as too much. I think there needs to be freedom. Of course, like, there's dangerous people writing dangerous stuff out there and all that kind of stuff. But like, for me subjectively, like, the more disturbing it is, the more I would like to read it, because I like how that blows my mind, and it creates. I start thinking in a new way after it.
mm,
So subjective. I can only speak subjectively. Now,
uh-huh,
as to your second question, Grimdark is definitely not reality. I don't think it's
uh-huh.
reality, but it goes past how do I explain this? It goes past reality. It goes to the
Hmm.
extremes, so that like when you start dealing with like the real, like the character's experience in the world is reality, but the world itself is not reality. The world is created to create those extremes, so that when you are addressing real topics, right, in the
Hmm.
book, it seems it's mundane. Even if it's like really messed up, it's mundane and soft enough compared to the world that you can you can address it without getting distracted with how messed up it is. I don't know how to I don't know if like I confuse myself saying that, so I'm sure people don't understand what I'm saying.
No,
But
no, I hear what you're saying.
the world is so extreme that when they are dealing, like Game of Thrones is so extreme that the incest is just like, it's just like, okay, what next happened? Like what next
And
happened?
I
Or
mean,
it's like people betraying each other. It hurts you, but like you keep moving forward. But betrayal is a real experience. Like it's obviously not the same kind of betrayal, but betrayal is a real experience, and you really feel the pain of the characters that have been betrayed. So so it's like in the extreme world, the real topics that are also messed up are addressed, and you the fact that you keep moving on, you keep moving on. It's easier to assimilate. I don't I fail for words, man. I
yeah,
but yeah.
no, I hear what you're saying. I think I actually view a similar way. I think that when I think Grimdark, at least dark fantasy at its best, I think it illustrates the darkness of our world and
Hmm.
kind of gives us a sort of outside look, like, oh yeah, this is happening in our world too. Um, um, I mean, I don't think the world is all bad. I do have a problem with the people. There is sort of a gripe with Grimdark, is the people who think like, oh man, this is how the world is, and I'm like, well, maybe you should like get out more and talk to people. But I
Okay,
do agree
okay.
with you that I do think that or I don't
So
know.
so
I know this
so
isn't
so
exactly what you're saying. Oh, sorry.
for the people that say that this is how the world is, I don't think they are exactly right. But if what they are referring to is that we live, so the world of Grimdark is absurd.
Sure, yeah, yeah, I'd agree with you on that. It
It's a
can be
pure,
anyway.
like it's yeah, it has to be absurd for it to be Grimdark. Now it's like we also live in an absurd world, but it's not the same world.
That's true. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
that's a good way to put it.
So it's like the lack of control that the characters have in the book. You can relate with the world, the lack of control that you have in the real world. But definitely, Grimdark is extreme. Like I've read some messed up stuff. Like it's like hopefully like that is just the man's imagination,
Well,
but
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah. No,
reality.
I agree with that. Also, Uzman says, perseverance is a common theme with Grimdark. I find I would
Mm,
agree with that.
yes,
Yeah,
that is what
or,
makes it so deep. You know, what makes it so interesting to suffer with these characters as they keep trudging on and on.
though, I mean, that's kind of it's interesting because I've heard, it kind of makes me think of, Berserk, because that's a big theme in Berserk is perseverance. You
No,
actually made a
but
video about that a while ago. You and AJP
yeah,
did.
yeah. Berserk is Kai. Like my God, like it's it's one of as far as I'm concerned, one of the best um Grimdark has to offer. Like storytelling in general has to have it. It's one of my favorite like stories of all time. Just like God's
Oh, Berserk is
continuous
like
will
what?
is crazy. It's just mind melting. You know, um, everything he's been through, and he's just trying to protect what he loves, and it's a very beautiful, like tragically beautiful, beautiful story.
My friend Darko is here. He says the newspaper reads like a grim dark novel these days.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's my point. It's like we do live in an actually
Because
absurd world. We're just used to it.
we speak. Speaking as someone who is working as a journalist. Yeah, it's because negativity sells. Believe it or not, which that's funny. That might also be a reason people are attracted to grimdark, though. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
um, for me, it's not so negativity and darkness. They are two different things. The darkness in the book presents itself as reality, like it presents itself like this is the reality of the story. So it's like any extra negativity to the story is just extra stuff. But like I see the parallel you're drawing there.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that. I mean, I'm not. I should note, I'm not pretending the world is a rosy, nice place. I mean, the world can be pretty nasty and mean often. I mean, look around you. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I agree with you that that grimdark is sort of based on absurdity, I guess, on some level. It's kind of the darkness in our world, which I mean, my God, I'm sure even if like an alien came down, um, like if an alien came down and saw just all the crazy stuff we get up to, they'd probably be like, God damn, that's it's too much, people.
Hmm.
Oh, my friend Jason's here. He says you need to feel the guy I was telling you about who read um the Prince of Nothing. I think was what he or the Darkness That Comes Before.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff. That's why I was saying that like the Prince of Nothing is I don't think R. Scott Baker thought to himself, let me write a grimdark novel. I think he wrote a
Well,
novel
no, I
that
don't.
that he wants to write. Wrote the novel that he wanted to write, but if I had to define grimdark, that's grimdark. That's what grimdark is to me. And it's like the way everything feels so grounded, like the the psychology in the book, the philosophy in the book, it feels like you know everything, the stuff he talks about, of course he's talking about it in context to the book and the story in the story, but you can also use it to make abstractions in real life as well, especially when you're experiencing the POV of the main character Kelos. Brilliant mind like that. It's like when you read Kelos POV, you know that R. Scott Baker is a madman. He's a mad genius, like psychopath, but I love him so much.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to, we were talking about absurdity, and it actually reminds me of a conversation I had with Jason the other day. Actually about his video doing the R. Scott Baker novel. The name, it was probably The Darkness That Comes Before, but I get lost with the fantasy names sometimes because um, because like he was telling me the other day how he felt that Game of Thrones was the only series that he felt where the characters felt real, and I was kind of like, huh, that's interesting that you say that. Because I kind of feel that First Law in some ways feel because like I don't know, the violence feels more real because like there's some points in Game of Thrones it gets pretty fucking out there. Like there's the one part where Ramsey, I don't know if he where Ramsey in the books anyway. I mean, my God, if you thought he was bad on the TV show, you ain't seen
In the
nothing yet.
books is
I'll put it that way.
actually in the
Um,
books is actually like
oh, he's 10 times
disgusting. It's
worse.
actually like, oh my god, like I'm just thinking about a scene right now. My god, like that dude
Um,
is, yeah,
I I don't recall if
special.
this is like a rumor, if this actually happens, but there's like a scene where like dogs, like he forces Arya or who he thinks is Arya to have sex with his dogs. I'm like, okay. Or there's this other part where the
Let me
Mountain
ask
and
you a
his gang
question.
are just
Would
chilling
you
out in a bar, and the guy's like, "Hey, you're being an asshole. Can you leave?" He just kills the guy and then gang rapes his daughter. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Like that's a little bit. There's some heightened stuff there. Like, hold on.
uh
Before you get,
so it's
and don't get me wrong, I still love Game of Thrones, and there are
no, no,
great
no.
characters in that
Of course,
story.
we all do. You see, so let me ask you a question. Would you rather be like in locked in a room with Ramsey, or like the both of them had to extract information
Wait, who
from
was
you.
the other one? I didn't catch the other one.
Glockta from the first law.
Uh, probably probably Glockta because
Yeah.
yeah, because he would probably he knows when to stop. Like Ramsey would
He knows
just
when to stop.
toy
Yeah,
with me and
Ramsey,
push
like
me until he's done playing.
past the confession, yes, past you confessing, he would just play around with you because like why not? Glock at least is funny. Yeah, at least it's funny. You might get a few laughs in while you're screaming in between
Hardcore.
screams.
I actually heard some of this. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, because like how are we going to get up every day in the morning? We can't let the world get us down. At least
Yeah,
most of the time.
yeah, yeah. Watch when you read Grimdark, you're just like your life, your problems in life seem very little. Just like I can handle.
Well, that's well. I mean, Game of Thrones and First Law are very different. Like First Law
Yeah,
is very much like
it's fast
very much
paced.
in the sword and sorcery tradition, while Game of Thrones is more epic fantasy.
Yeah,
Just
Game of
what would
Thrones
this
doesn't
be like
focus.
in the
Yeah, yeah,
like? I don't know
yeah.
if I don't know who's read comics here, but I don't know who's read comics here, but Game of Thrones is like the Watchmen of epic fantasy. If you really want to like, because it's very much like taking the fantasy genre seriously and saying, what would this be like in the real world? Yeah, or at least that's how I view it. I could, I bet there's going to be some people who are going to be like, no, Britain, you fucking idiot. That's not what that, that's not at all what that's doing. But, that's how I view it. I thought this was pretty
The
funny.
Glock you just kick his cane. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
But then you'll have to get past Severard and Frost. uh,
Beyond
what?
Redemption.
Oh God, yeah. Beyond Redemption would suck.
Like,
I could be just walking around
but
minding my own
so
business,
let
and
me
then
let
Gabrek
me
shows up.
exactly. Let me tell you why Beyond Redemption. Like, I feel like the Prince of Nothing is also a very, very messed up world. But I'll say Beyond Redemption because the premise of Beyond Redemption is that like your delusions manifest. So the more mentally ill you are, the more powerful you are. And your mental illness basically shapes the reality around you. So if like I'm in the same room with Britain, for instance, right?
Uh-huh.
And like he's more mentally ill than me. Here's the world that his mind is creating would impose itself on me. So the world is literally the worst place it can be because the world represents the generally the world represents the most mentally ill person in the world. So it's messed up. It's very, very messed up. Like the world encourages people to be insane. Insanity is the strongest people are the most insane people. So it's Beyond Redemption is
I was about
it's one of my favorite books of all time. But yeah.
Uh, it's funny, the worst. That's tough because like I would not want to live in Westeros or First Law
No, but
or
in West,
but Beyond
but
Redemption. Like at least with First Law and like Game of Thrones, you could probably get by and mind your own business, and you'll be okay if you're lucky. Beyond
yeah.
Redemption, I could be just minding my own business, walk into like my mom's house, and then fucking Gerbrecken and his
Oh,
group of
Brecken, just
depraved
like, and
maniacs,
it's not.
just
He doesn't even need
wreck
to
my life.
notice you. Like he doesn't even need to notice you. You just need to enter the sphere of his influence, and all of a sudden you're enslaved for life. The most disgusting way possible. But but yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, no, like so. Yeah, I'd probably say Beyond Redemption would be not fun. At least in like First Law and Westeros, I think you could get on and mind your own business, and you'll be okay as long as you're not like
Yeah, yeah. You just
antagonizing
make sure
anybody.
make sure you're in the you're never in the wrong place at the wrong time in Westeros, and you'll be fine.
I know there is way more to it than this, but for it to be grimdark to me, there has to be no good characters. The world has to be the worst place to live in ever, and atrocities must be constant. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So I do not
I don't
believe,
know.
right?
I
Okay,
don't know
so
if I
this
would
is
go
a
that
personal thing.
extreme. Yeah, I'll let you take it first.
I kind of agree with him. You cannot have maybe they are good characters, but they would probably have no real influence like in the book. Like the a character that isn't nuanced enough psychologically, isn't nuanced enough to be able to be potentially evil, at least will never survive in a grimdark world, just based on it. You cannot, you cannot in like imagine like Jehovah's Witness in the world of beyond redemption trying to preach the word of God. Like he won't survive. He won't survive. It wouldn't make sense. So it's possible to have good characters, but they would not really have much influence. Never, probably never to protagonist as well. You need to have like a nuanced protagonist that willing to do what he needs to do to, survive in a world like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, I think there's some I think there are some like, well, what would I call them? Good? I mean, Game of Thrones, I think there are some good characters, but they tend to struggle a lot. As
Yeah.
well in First Law, like I don't think like mm, it's tough. It's tough to say.
Like who is a
Like
good character in the first law?
I don't know.
No one.
Dogman maybe.
Dogman did some terrible things, man. Like,
Yeah, that is true.
have you read all three books?
I have read all three books.
You haven't, or you
No,
have
are you talking about the whole are you talking about the
the
original series or all the books?
the original
Yeah,
series.
I've read them all. Yeah.
Well, like Dogman, I'll say he has good intentions, but I like if he had to do something, like I don't, it was never like beyond him to do it, but never beyond him to not do it or do it. You know what I mean?
I was
Like he
also
was
about to
gritty. He
say
was a
Henry
man of the
West
north.
maybe, but also he did hit his sister, and that's never cool. Don't hit women, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, yeah, and he also did something else as well. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I won't
yeah,
spoil
so
that.
yeah, I don't,
I
yeah,
won't spoil
don't say
that.
anything. But yeah,
Um,
yeah, like it's not, but like it's all relative. It's like about it's never between good and evil. It's about evil and arguably worse. So
sure,
you
yeah.
know, yeah, never
I
good
kind
and evil.
I guess I guess I kind of view it as people trying to make it in a amoral world, if
Okay.
anything else. Which
Hmm.
I guess kind of leads to my next question here for anyone. What do you think is the this might get a little heady, so or hopefully not. I'm trying to keep this for people to understand. But what do you think is the philosophy behind the genre of grimdark? Though I guess we're already kind of talking about that.
So it's from my experience, it's again, it has to be subjective because it's
Sure.
I feel like the world now the world that the grimdark world is definitely nihilism, right? But
Mm-hmm.
each characters, the meaning that each character, so you can find a stoic character in a grimdark, stoic character you can find an optimist in a grimdark world. You can find a pessimist in a grimdark world. You can find an existentialist in a grimdark in itself. This kind of theme and the world is a platform
Mm-hmm.
there that can contain different philosophies and ideas. And what is interesting about the world of grimdark is that these philosophies and ideas constantly clash, and then there's also at the level of the reader reading the book. So if you're a writer that understands these philosophies and they are clashing in an honest way. So you're not leaning towards a stoic that has an issue with, like, I don't know, like an expressionist, or you know what I mean. You're not, like, you're honestly writing like realistic scenarios that will come up from a clash between like two different or opposing philosophies. Then it's interesting to read. If you're going to have an atheist character and a religious character clash, there's a lot of questions that can come from that clash. And if you're writing it honestly, so Grimdark is as a theme, as the world is nihilistic, which is basically everything is meaningless, but meaning, everybody is trying to survive in it in a different way, which makes it a breeding ground for like philosophy and ideas. From that is what I enjoy much.
Yeah. I remember you saying in your Grimdark video, and I thought it was pretty hilarious. But and I'll admit I am kind of paraphrasing here, and you can correct me if I misunderstand it. But you said that Grimdark was about finding meaning in meaninglessness. Um, like, what would you say to expand on that? Like what does that mean? Because, like, I mean,
So
I know there are
like
people out there who go like the violence was too much. I know that bugs you.
it's like no, it's like I don't I read so some book reviewers, for instance, they will say, oh, I'm going to read Prince of Nothing. I heard Prince of Nothing is dark, or I read Beyond Redemption is grimdark. And then they read it and they complain about violence. That is like complaining that in a romance novel the characters were making out too much. It is the violence is part of it. The meaninglessness is part of it. Like, that is the theme. It was an intentional decision to write like that. So if I'm intentionally doing something, you cannot objectively criticize it, because you don't know my, like, I did it intentionally, like, you know what I mean. So
So you think
um
intentionality is
intent
you think intent
is
is
very
important?
important.
Okay.
Very important. Intent is almost is I don't believe in, I don't believe in absolutism, but like I think intent is everything. As a
Yeah, he says Prince
contradiction, but
Jorg and his
your
crew are all pretty
yeah,
irredeemable.
yeah, irredeemable. Like, the first time I read like the Prince of Thorns, like, I read the first chapter, just his POV, just like when I'm saying the first chapter, the first few books, and I was just like, okay, this was like years ago. I didn't know where the story was going, and I just dropped it. And then when I
Mm.
joined BookTube, um, Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads was like, "Bam, I think you're gonna like this." Well, Epic, he calls me Epic. Epic, you're gonna like this. And then I was like, "Sure, whatever." And then I read it, and I was like, not bad. Like, yeah, this is
Typical.
totally my thing. But it's so like in your face. Like, there's almost, and for what it is, I'm not saying it as a criticism, but there's almost no subtlety to how messed up it is. It's just like in your face. And yeah.
So are you saying that Prince of Nothing, or not Prince of Nothing? God,
Prince
I
of
keep getting them
Thorns.
mixed up. Prince of
Prince of
Thorns. So are you saying that you think Prince of Thorns has a lack of intentionality?
No, no, no. It's very is if anything, like, again, like the intention is not subtle at all. It was like, what is the most horrible thing I can write at this moment, and that was what he did.
So are you saying
But
it kind of
it's
felt cheap to you?
no, I would say cheap. I would say cheap. I enjoyed the book. Like, it was one of my first
Oh,
reviews on BookTube. I enjoyed the book. Um I've just read
I
much. I've just read much like intricate. Yes, this is what we were saying about characters in the Grimdark
was about to
world.
say, yeah, I
You
forgot Jake
understand
was
what they are
saying Prince
doing,
of Thorns.
and the funny thing is that you can even project. After a while, the characters like no longer surprise you. You know exactly how they are going to react. So you've kind of there's a level of identity like that you've gone in with them. But what I mean in like, and Mark Lawrence has gone on to write much better stuff, but like the Prince of Thorns is very like understandable. That I think that was his first novel, and it's not, its lack of subtlety is a little bit yeah. When you read the Prince of Thorns, you call that Grimdark, and then you read the second Apocalypse, the darkness that comes before. You know exactly what I mean. It's the Prince of Thorns is not subtle at all. Very different books, but of course, like Grimdark.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my first technical like grimdark read was Game of Thrones, and even then, like it's kind of again, I like to call it the Watchmen of epic fantasy, because I mean, I think that's just kind of what it is, really. I mean, you have to kind of, I mean, you don't have to understand the history of epic fantasy before you read it. You can read it and have a good time with it. But or well, I mean,
You
good time.
started you started
Good
on
time.
you started on the deep end though.
Yeah.
I will not tell someone like that, was just getting into fantasy or into epic fantasy or even into grimdark in general to start with Game of Thrones.
No, I mean, maybe I would probably say like First Law to get their feet wet, you know?
Yeah, First Law, like Prince of Thorns. If you can endure Prince of Thorns, then you've laid a very good foundation to read anything. But
Yeah, I
Prince of
mean, I haven't
Thorns,
read
like
Prince of Thorns yet.
I'll say Lies of Loch as well. You know,
Yeah, but is
like
that grimdark though? Like, I kind of.
it is. So Lies of Loch I haven't actually read it, but I've just heard so many people talk about it, and that's why I don't always refer to it so strongly. But apparently, the world is really really messed up, and there's a very strong focus on the relationship between the characters, and like that's where like the essence of the book is derived from. And I can
Yeah, I would agree
and
with that.
yeah, and someone and other people that I really respect in this that also appreciate Grimdark have said has have described it as a good entry to Grimdark, but I wouldn't be able to tell you if it was necessarily Grimdark or not.
Would you call AJP's book grimdark?
AJP's book is psychedelic, man. Like it's psychedelic.
You know,
It's
I was
like I
talking to him the other night, and he was telling me, I won't I'm respect for his privacy, but he was kind of telling me all this like really dark stuff. And I'm like, geez, man, like that's kind of deep. And he's like, yeah, but the
no.
sex was great. And I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck, bro? Like that's just totally 180. Like I had to tell you that because I'm like, it was
Yeah.
like
No,
what?
AJP is definitely an interesting character, and the way he talks about like all this stuff is like he's I genuinely believe he's a savant. Like he's read so much. He's read so much. And when you look at his book, you can tell like he has so many influences. And this is so I'm not like trying to shit on his book or anything like, and I've told him this directly. His book has so many ideas in it, and so it's difficult to focus when you're reading his book. And you can tell that it's psychedelic. It's kind of like you cannot settle on one idea or one thought, because contradicting ideas and very different characters, and he's writing the book from like different eras of it's just it's but the writing itself, like his ability with the pen and his knowledge of like words and prose is also really 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 good. So
Oh yeah, he's
it's
way
a
above
book
my
I'll
pay grade.
recommend.
I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, we gotta.
Like
Like, oh my god.
have you like how far have you gone in it? Let me
Are you
see.
talking about his book? I haven't read it yet. I
Oh, okay,
um
okay,
I hope to
okay.
read it at some point.
Yeah, let me see if I can look at how thick the book is, right?
Oh my
And then look at
god.
and then look at how tiny the print is. Oh, I don't know if you can see. Well, it's not showing, but look at how
You just
tiny.
vanished from the screen.
Yeah, look at how tiny the print is,
Oh wow,
and look
that's
at how big the book is. I've been reading this book for how long now? I'm just here.
Oh
you
man.
know. So it's definitely a slow burn, but I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, man. It's he says York has motive though. You don't have to like him, just understand him. Well, that's another kind of pet peeve of mine was people go like, "Oh, the characters aren't likable," and then I just sit there and I shrug and go, well, "They don't have to be fucking likable. They have to be interesting." Now I can
Yeah, it's
deal with
more about
assholes as long as they're
yeah,
interesting. If there's an
it's
asshole
more
that's
like
uninteresting, then forget it. I'm not going to read your book.
yeah, I completely agree with you. But you see, for me, I tend to like interesting characters. So for me, it's one and the same. Like I
Yeah,
understand the division, but like if a character is interesting, even if they are despicable, I like him. You know, I was explaining. I read this book, "Spare Cuts Through Water," and I was describing it one time, and I was described as a masochist because I liked the antagonist, so much in the book, and very despicable, committed genocide, all that stuff. But as a father, for instance, like the antagonist was a great father. And anyway, I don't want to talk. Oh, spare cuts. Oh, are you reading spare cuts through water? Yeah. Then let me just shut up.
oh yeah, Dorka
I
was
would,
telling me
I
that
would,
earlier.
I would hate to spoil anything for you in spare
I
cuts
haven't
through
read it
water.
yet either, so
You should read it. You should read it. I would recommend that. Black and Blue, down from Black and Blue Color, like recommended it to me, and I loved it. It is not grimdark, but there's a scene. My God, there's a scene in that book that just it broke me, man. Like, and I've read a lot of messed up stuff. It broke me emotionally,
like it
and
haunted you. Like this is a first.
no, no,
I've usually not seen it.
I read the chapter like I read the chapter like 4 or 5 times in a row because I was just like, what the hell? Like why would you even do that? It's such a crazy and I'm sure I'm talking about it, but and very vaguely, but the moment you get to that point in the book, and Simon Jimenez, my God, he's writing in second person. It feels like an experimental book, like where he's just like bending, like integrating a lot of ideas, and he pulls everything he's doing off. Like he is, and the crazy thing is that he's just getting started as a writer. Simon Jimenez, guys, remember the name. Simon Jimenez is a crazy, crazy writer. Like, highly, highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, I saw Evie from God, what's her channel name?
Evie is in love with him. Easy,
Yeah,
Evie is
no, she's
actually like in love with him.
yeah, she's the one who recommended it to me. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of people.
You recommended it was on the New Year's chat. We're together where everyone was talking about it on the comment section, and then
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, that's right.
it was recommended to us at the same time.
Yeah, I need to read that because a lot of people, I me, I'm kind of with oh, thanks D. She was only
That's
Evie.
it.
That's right.
Let me ask you a question. If you had to mention like three booktubers, right, that like were aligned with your taste, like the most, like if they told you go
Oh
and
man.
read this book, you had to like your TBR, you just like rearrange your TBR and put the book they're recommending to the top of the list.
Oh man, there's a lot of those.
There are a lot of
And
those.
not even not even from like not even from like people I watch frequently. Like the other day I was watching Right Consciousness's videos and he had some
Ooh,
interesting videos,
right. I love
or
right consciousness. Did you see his new video with AJP?
I did, and I had no freaking clue what he was going on about. I was like, that was another
They
one
were
of those.
talking
I'm
about
like,
like that's the thing with AJP. Like they were talking about the alchemical like connection in blood meridian, and I was
yeah,
just
I'm
like
like,
I did
what?
not even pick up on like I was like I but then at some point in the narration, AJP was like, yeah, but he referred to himself as it's probably just schizophrenia, but it's creating connections. But yeah, you said right consciousness. Like who else?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't put him on my like top three, but let's see, who do I watch a lot? Um, Maybe my friend Jason, though we disagree often. Uh, Jason Furman, he has a lot of interesting thoughts. Um, God, who else? I like Philip Chase a lot. I think he's. I've had him on my channel a couple times. He's a really interesting guy. Raf Blue Text. I think he's
Ah, like intelligent, very intelligent man, very very
yeah, he's,
intelligent
he's
man.
kind of like he
Him
kind of
and
reminds me of
Finish.
AJP because he goes on things I've never even heard of. He's on another
Yeah,
level.
his thing is his intelligence is kind of like wild, very
Yeah,
wild. Like, and he is very like he's read a lot of books, philosophy, everything, but like his opinions are very like original as well. So he abstracts from what he reads. He doesn't just regurgitate it to you. You know, I love that
no,
about
and
his stuff.
I mean that's something I try to do on my channel as well. Though I mean I haven't really gotten the cult following. Well, I do have a cult following. I have all these beautiful people here today, which thank you all for showing up.
Yeah,
He had some interesting views on Grimdark because it's like I don't know. You might have to watch him because I don't know. See what you think on him, but
yeah, like I'll give his stuff like if he's saying something about Grimdark, I would like to see it.
like if
But
he like, I'll say this: if Raph gives a recommendation, I will definitely put it on my list because it'll probably, if nothing else, it'll be interesting.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
I watched. I also watched Tori a lot too.
yeah.
Again, it's weird.
Tori is
I
pretty
bounce
cool.
back.
I'm gonna read her book. I'm gonna read her book as well. I'm gonna read her
Um,
book.
yeah, but
I
going
want
back
to
to Grimdark,
do.
we kind of.
Sorry.
I was saying, just going back to Grimdark because we kind of went on a
Yeah,
tangent there.
yeah,
I would probably say Slowly Red is the best. Like he got me. He was the first one who turned me on to Beyond Redemption.
yeah. Slowly. That he's definitely my top three for sure. Maybe number one. I don't like. I don't like that he doesn't post as much anymore. But yeah, much.
Oh yeah,
He's
I haven't read Brian Lee Durfee's series yet.
actually right. Actually, I should do a thing where like I focus on like books that booktubers have written, and review those, and like like make a series out of it or something, and do some comic animations for their stories, and that would be that would be great. Slowly Red is awesome. Like, I love Slowly Red so much. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like
I'm always DMing him. Oh, when are you coming back? And then he once in a while, like I send him, like, I go to like Reddit, like, and I go to part of all these Reddit channels, and I go there, and like I screenshot people asking where is Slowly Red, and I send it to him, like, with different like dates and timestamps, so he knows that, okay, like, but he is like, I don't know, like, I'm sure life is dealing with life, but yeah, I love his channel. I watch some of his old videos that I've watched before just to feel his energy. Very powerful guy.
um, are there grim dark or dark fantasy or like whatever we want to call it? Because again, we're still kind of unsure what grim dark means by the end of this video, but or by the time we're here. But like what are some grim dark books you want to read soon that have captured your interest? Or are you
Well, I want
kind
to
of like
finish
taking a break right
Malazan. I want to finish Malazan. I want to finish the second part of the second apocalypse. That's like the Prince of Nothing, Aspect Emperor, and all those other books. I want to read. I want to finish Prince of Thorns. I've only read the first book. I want to finish like Brian Lee Duffy's book. Forget the name. I want to check that out as well. I want to read more Michael Fletcher. I want to finish the books. I did. I can go on for days. I want to finish Joe Abercrombie's like collection.
Mm.
Yeah, like there's more than enough. Like I want to reread the whole Song of Ice and Fire, but I told myself I wouldn't do that until George R. Martin like came up with the next book.
Ah,
Like yeah,
yeah, when that's
like
gonna happen.
yeah, like there are a lot of indie authors as well that like I'm keeping my eye on, and I'd love to read their stuff as well. So I want to read God Metal Gods. I haven't read that as well. Like
Yeah, no, that sounds
yeah,
cool from what I've heard
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. So I there's a lot that I would love to read.
Like, do you have any other thoughts on Grimdark or anything? Like, just
Yeah, like
some other misconceptions you want to kind of boot?
so many books, so little time. It gives me
I,
night. When I look at my TBR, I actually like feel sad because I don't think I can finish
I know,
reading.
right?
Oh, no, I'm serious. I don't think I can finish ever because it keeps adding up. So I don't think I'll ever be able to finish all the books on my TBR before I die.
Well, that's
For real.
good that my fantasy novel is only about 200 something pages. So even if it sucks, it's not that big of a time. Or if you don't like it, it wasn't that big of a time commitment.
Have you picked a date? Have you picked the time you want to publish it yet?
No, I'm hopefully gonna hopefully Amanda isn't here and spying on us, but but hopefully if I can make up my mind on what I want to do in terms of publishing, um
That's why you say you
and
hope Amanda is here.
yeah, I said I hope Amanda isn't here. But if I just I'm gonna edit it some more, and if I make up my mind on if I'm gonna self pub or if I'm gonna traditionally publish this thing, um
Yeah. So let
I'll
me
let
let
you
me tell
know.
you this. Let me tell you this. Try to self-publish. Try to pub, but like if that doesn't work, like don't insist on it. Just self-pub. Because bro, you're growing like an audience. Like every like a lot of booktubers know you from your interviews, like and everything. You have a relationship with a lot of booktubers. Like you have like the network you need,
Yeah,
and you're in the review space as well. So like of course as your channel continues to grow, like I look at Brantley Durfee and I love what he's doing so much. Like he is that is the kind of that's the kind of that seems like something I would enjoy doing, talking about other books, and just is your favorite booktuber's favorite book, pretty
I mean,
much like
I'll put it this way. If anyone didn't know already, I did write a fantasy novel. It's called A Plague of Nightmares. I'm hoping to put it out at some point. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do
is
it.
it
And
is it grim dark based on our conversation
I
today?
I would call it dark fantasy. I wouldn't call it grim
dark
dark, but
dark fantasy
maybe.
dark fantasy Yeah, I'm
Kind
gonna
of
do a
sword and
thing.
sorcery, except there's guns. Except there's well, not like guns. Like like these kind of guns, but like flintlock guns.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
like
learn how
sounds
to
good.
pitch. I gave you a copy of it if you wanted
Yeah,
to read
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. I read, but that was like I. So let me tell you what really happened. So when I read it, like I opened the book up to read, and I saw so many comments from Amanda, and
yeah yeah yeah.
I couldn't ignore the comments. So it was very my reading experience was very like stuttery. So I was like, okay, if I have like a copy for myself, then maybe I will, but like definitely like I'd love to give it a go. Like I remember first the little bit I read about it, you were talking about this guy that was, they offered him a deal. Like I wasn't quite sure. I didn't get to what the deal was, but like it sounded like it had a really interesting premise. So
I was about to say
uh,
that's the hook of the book for anyone who's interested.
yeah.
um, but yeah, no. But I think that's about it. I don't really have anything else to ask about Grimdark aside from what we've already talked about. I mean, because I was hoping here today we would come together in brotherhood. Okay, maybe that's a little dramatic, but we would come here and talk about what makes Grimdark tick. I would have gotten you or like slow. Well, I would have gotten you because well we're pretty tight already, so you know
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
but
more like acquainted with slowly right.
yeah, for me, it's an ever evolving journey. It's an ever evolving understanding of it. I know that like I resonate a lot with Grimdark. Like the novel I'm writing is Grimdark as well. So
Mm.
like for me, every time I read Grimdark, it's also like a study for me as well. So yeah, like yeah, like if you ever want to like go through this journey with me and experience Grimdark, and not just Grimdark, but like literature and like through my experience and everything. Like check out my channel, and
Oh, I thought you were like saying hello. I'm like, what? Who are you talking to?
no, I was just shamelessly plugging my channel. So
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, I guess before we leave, you can like shill your content, like be shameless.
yeah,
But
check
oh,
out my
oh,
content, Epic Tales, man. That's where it's at.
so you can also find him on Twitter as well. um, what? I mean, you can find me on Twitter or X. I still call it Twitter because it's fucking Twitter. Anyway, you can find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd where I write reviews. They're probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now, though this wasn't really a review, but you get it. Also on Discord if you want to come hang out and talk. And check out Epic's channel. He's a cool guy. He's always got some interesting views, and he's a very curious guy, and he talks with some interesting people, like that English teacher guy you talked to. I forget the guy's name. Isn't it Andrew?
It's yeah, Ray. He's a professor at UBC of creative
Ray.
writing.
How did I get Andrew from Ray?
Well, I have an interview with him and Andrew from Andrew's Weasley Read, so like
Oh,
it's
okay, that
maybe
might have
that's
been
where. Yeah,
um, but Epic, we should do this again. I don't know. I
one
don't know if
hundred
it would be
percent.
about Grimdark, but we should do this again at some point.
It doesn't have to be like I initially came thinking boy and like Spawn and like what's the name of the bounty hunter guy, the Marvel comics. What's his name? He hates Spider-Man. What's his face?
The
I forget his name.
Punisher.
Not the Punisher. Well, the Punisher will be in that category as well. But yeah, but yeah, that kind of stuff. But like yeah, so if it's talking about, I'm a huge comic fan as well. So if it's
No,
comics
like
like
manga as well.
Grimdark, manga, like bro, like stories in general, man, I got you. Like I would love to have discussions with you in the future.
Yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. We actually got to 13 people, which is crazy. That hasn't actually happened yet on my channel. So thank you everyone who showed up and contributed. If you want to watch after the if you want to watch after the after this is over, if you want to watch the playback, I appreciate that as well. Yeah, this was a great discussion, guys. That's what Darko said. Thank you. Also, thank you, D. I'm glad you showed up. I bet it's really late where she's at because she's in England.
Oh,
Yeah. um. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. Epic again. We should do this again at some point.
of course,
Maybe
100%.
someone speeding outside your house.
Oh, you can hear that.
I heard that.
You can actually hear that. Wow, like maybe the noise
Like
reduction
it's
on
too
this mic
good.
is not the best. Wow.
All right.
But
Well,
anyway,
anyway, take care, everyone. Until next time, I'm going to grab dinner. So, because it's that time where I'm at. Epic, you have a good rest of your day, evening. Um,
you too.
until next time.
Stay epic.